Shalom, my brothers and sisters in Christ. We will be doing another video, this time on Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, and Jabal Maqla in Saudi Arabia. This is Jabal Maqla in Saudi Arabia. As you can see, the rock has melted and it has become igneous rock. This is not a volcano. This is not magma. This is not lava. This is rock that was melted. What melted it, you might ask? We'll get to that soon. So, what are the Midianites? Who are they? These are Arabs. Midian is a geographical region in West Asia mentioned in the Hebrew Bible and the Quran. William G. Denver states that the biblical Midian was in the northwest Arabian Peninsula on the east shore of the Gulf. So, Midian and Medina have a similar root, but it's not the same place. Let's read about Jabal Maqla, shall we? Jabal Maqla, a mountain in Saudi Arabia. Jabal Maqla is a mountain located in northwest Saudi Arabia near the Jordan border above the Gulf of Aqaba and is located in Tabuk, Saudi Arabia. Maqla is one of the tallest mountains on the northwestern Arabian Peninsula, and the estimated terrain elevation is about 2,326 meters, 7,631 feet above sea level. It is in the Madian Mountains. Various forms of spelling for Jabal Maqla, or in other languages, are El Maqla, Jabal Magla, Al Maqla, Jabal Maqla, Al Maqla, El Maqla, El Maqla, Jabal Magla, Jabal Magla, Jabal Maqla, and a few others. But that's not what's important here. It is interesting that it says El Maqla, El Elohim, so it could say like God Mountain, for example. Its name means burnt mountain. Now, I don't know what the Arabic word for mountain is, but I'm assuming it means Maqla. So El Maqla could mean mountain of God, and Jabal Maqla could mean burnt. So actually, let me look into that. I want to see exactly which one of these words means mountain. So let's go on Google Translate. Google Translate. So we're going to go with English to Arabic. Burnt. Arik. Let's see. Let's go with mountain. Jabal. Okay, so Jabal means mountain. So Maqla must mean burnt then. Okay, so I had that backwards. Okay. So let me look at that one more time. Jabal means mountain. Okay. Anyway, its name means burnt mountain, which is attributed to the black igneous rocks that cap the otherwise lighter brown colored mountain. What is an igneous rock? Magmatic rock. This is over tens of square miles, possibly up to 100 square miles, this black molten rock. How did this possibly happen if it's not a volcano? Let's continue. In discussions about the location of biblical Mount Sinai, also known as Mount Horeb, Saudi Arabia, and biblical Mount Sinai, Jabal Maqla, or Jabal Maqla, burnt mountain, is believed to be the Jabal al-Laz by various authors such as Bob Cornuke, Ron Wyatt, and Leonard Moyler, as shown by the local and regional maps and noted by other investigators. Geology. The summit of Jabal Maqla consists mainly of dark-colored hornfells derived from metamorphosed volcanic rocks that originally were silicic and mafic lava flows, but this is not a volcano. And tough breccias and fragmental greenstones. The middle and lower slopes of Jabal Maqla consist of light-colored granite. All right, this isn't very important. What is important is what the Bible says lines up very perfectly with the geographical evidence. I believe there was something here that I found interesting. Okay, so let's type Mount Horeb now. Mount Horeb. And then I'll be reading some Bible verses. Mount Horeb is the mountain at which the Ten Commandments were given to Moses by God according to the book of Deuteronomy in the Hebrew Bible. It is described in two places, the book of Exodus and the book of Kings. It's also mentioned in the book of in Malachi. Anyway, so it's called the Mountain of Elohim. The mountain is also called the Mountain of Yahweh. In other biblical passages, these events are described as having transpired in Mount Sinai, although most scholars consider Sinai and Horeb to be different names for the same place. There's a minority body of opinion that they may have been different locations. I believe it was the same place as well. Trying to see if it said etymology. Horeb is thought to mean dry place or glowing heat, which seems to be a reference to the sun, while Sinai may have derived from the name of Sin. Well, glowing heat seems to mention, if it's a glowing heat, God set the mountain on fire in Exodus 19 and 20. All right, so let's read the Bible verses now. We'll get into that. So once again, the Midianites were believed to have inhabited northwestern Arabia. And this is important for the story. Okay. Let me start off with what Saul wrote. St. Paul, as people refer to him. I don't agree with him on the Torah. I'm going to say that every time I mention him. I completely disagree with Saul of Tarsus on the Torah. Everything he says about the Torah is factually incorrect, and I'm not sure what his motivation was when he became a Christian. Whether it was an authentic conversion or whether it was to sabotage Christianity by getting us away from the Torah, I do not know. What I do know is in Galatians 4:25, he says, "For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia." Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, Jabal Maqla, same thing. He identifies Mount Sinai with Arabia, the Midianite territory, Saudi Arabia. Okay, so Saul says Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb is in Arabia. This is Jabal Maqla. Here's some other views of it. Here you can see some depictions of what looks like livestock. Here you can see what looks like the rock that Moses might have split in half. God says, strike the rock with your staff and water will pour out of it. And so he did. Here you can see how much of that rock has melted. It's a very interesting place. Very, very interesting place. Definitely a holy site for the Jews, Christians, and hopefully the Muslims as well. Okay, so we're going to start reading the Bible verses. So we're going to go with Horeb first. So I'm using BibleGateway.com, and in the search bar I typed Horeb. So Exodus 3:1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. He married a Midianite, which is the people of Arabia. So he kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And this is where he sees the burning bush, which the angel of the Lord, which we know is Christ, is inside of the burning bush, and he walks towards it, and then God speaks to him from out of the burning bush, and he says, "What is your name?" And he says, "I am that I am." That's what you shall tell the children of Israel. So when Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am," and the Jews try to stone him in John chapter, I believe it was chapter 9, might have been chapter 8. I believe it's chapter 8. When he says, "I am," before Abraham was, I am, and the Jews try to stone him for it. It's because he's claiming to be God. He's claiming to be the angel of the Lord in the burning bush. So Exodus 3:1, he's in the land of Midian, keeping the flock of his father-in-law, and he goes into Horeb, the mountain of God. Exodus 17:6, "Behold, I will stand before you upon the rock in Horeb, and you shall smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel." Is this the rock he smote? Is this where the water shot out from like a geyser? Wouldn't that be interesting? Exodus 33:6, "And the children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments by the Mount Horeb." Deuteronomy 1:2, "There are 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir unto Kadesh Barnea." Now, the land of Seir is the land of Esau, which I believe is south of Israel. Deuteronomy 1:6, "The Lord our God spake unto us in Horeb, saying, You have dwelt long enough in this mount." Deuteronomy 1:19, "And when we departed from Horeb, we went through all that great and terrible wilderness, which you saw by the way of the mountain of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us, and we came to Kadesh Barnea." Deuteronomy 4:10, "Especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in Horeb." So one thing I'd like to say is the book of Deuteronomy, it's like a letter that Moses is writing for the Israel people. He's saying, do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when that happened? And then God did this to us because we did that to God. So Deuteronomy is by far the most important book of the Torah because of all the prophecies and the warnings. Everybody who believes in God should read Deuteronomy at least once. Ideally, you want to read it every single day. So especially Deuteronomy 4:10, "Especially the day that you stood before the Lord in Horeb." you stood before the Lord your God in Horeb, when the Lord said unto me, Gather me together the people, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. Deuteronomy 4:15. Take you therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you out of Horeb, out of the midst of the fire. This fire is what melted this rock, this mountain. Deuteronomy 5:10. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. Deuteronomy 9:8. Also in Horeb you provoked the Lord to wrath, so that the Lord was angry with you to have destroyed you. This is with the burning calf, the golden calf. Moses went up the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments, and he also received the book of Jubilees, apparently. And when he came down, the Jews had corrupted themselves, but before he came down, God told Moses, I'm going to destroy these people for disobedience. And Moses pleaded with God to be merciful. Deuteronomy 18:16. According to all that you desired of the Lord your God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see this great fire any more, so I do not die. Deuteronomy 29:1. These are the words of the covenant which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, which is Jordan, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb, which is Arabia. 1 Kings 8:9. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables of stone which Moses put there at Horeb when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. 1 Kings 19:8. And he arose and did eat and drink and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. Jabal Maqla, Arabia. 2 Chronicles 5:10. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables, which, see, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, and Chronicles, it's like the history. So we don't have the stories. We don't have like the book of the prophet Edo, for example. That's been lost. We don't have the Acts of King Solomon. That's also been lost. But we do have the summaries. So 1 and 2 Chronicles is a good summary of the history. But it's not exactly a book of prophecy. It's a book of history. So 2 Chronicles 5:10. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. Psalms 106:19. 106, verse 19. And they made a calf in Horeb and worshipped the molten image. Malachi 4:4. Remember you the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. So, very important that we keep the Torah. God said so. Multiple times. Okay. So we're going to go with Sinai now. Exodus 16:1. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. Exodus 19:1. And the third, I'm going to get back to Exodus 19 and Exodus 20. These are very important chapters because we can see exactly when this mountain melted. Exodus 19:1. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. 19:2. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. 19:11. And be ready against the 3rd day, for the 3rd day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. 19:18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. 19:20. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai at the top of the mount, and the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. 19:23. And Moses said unto the Lord, The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you charged us, saying, Set bounds about the mount and sanctify it. Exodus 24:16. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days, and the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Exodus 31:18. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone written with the finger of God. Exodus 34:2. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me at the top of the mount. Exodus 34:4. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and went up into Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. Exodus 34:29. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses was not aware that the skin of his face shone while he talked with them. Exodus 34:32. And afterward all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. Leviticus 7:38. Which the Lord commanded Moses in Mount Sinai in the day that he commanded the children of Israel to offer their oblations, which could be sacrifices. I believe it's sacrifices. offer their oblations unto the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai. Leviticus 25:1. And the Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Leviticus 26:46. These are the statutes and judgments and laws which the Lord made between him and the children of Israel in Mount Sinai by the hand of Moses. Leviticus 27:34. These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses for the children of Israel in Mount Sinai. Numbers 1:1. And the Lord spake unto Moses. Okay, so this is basically, it's just a bunch of verses on it. Let's get to the important thing. So Mount Sinai is a very important holy mountain. Look at this. Look at how big this is. Look at all this smoke and fire. So let's go with Exodus 19 and 20 so we can read the context of what exactly happened here. So this is one of the holy sites of Judaism and Christianity. So they depart from Egypt. They arrive in Sinai. God is speaking through Moses. And verse 19:9, Exodus, Lord said unto Moses, I come unto you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak unto you, and believe you forever. And Moses told the words of the people of the people unto God. And God said unto Moses, Go unto the people, and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes. Be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And goes on to say they sanctify themselves, they wash their clothes, don't touch your wives. And verse 16, it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of a trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that were in the camp trembled. And this is what's going to happen again on the rapture. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. The smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount greatly quaked. And when the voice of the trumpet grew louder, sounded long, and grew louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai at the top of the mount, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And okay, so chapter 20, so this is the 10 Commandments. And actually, there's a few more commandments at the end of it, but the 10 Commandments God speaks, and the few extra ones he tells Moses directly. So, I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make unto you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So this is Exodus 20. God is telling us no graven images. No graven images. This is very important, Catholics and Orthodox and some Protestants. Very important, Muslims, when you're worshiping a golden box, a golden cube with a meteor inside of it when you're worshiping the moon. You shall not make unto you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. No graven images of the crescent moon, Muslims. You shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of those that hate me. So if your great-great-grandparents messed up, you inherit the sins of your fathers. But if you do well, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Not enough to just say the Hail Mary full of grace. No, you got to keep the commandments of the Torah. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. What is his name? It's Yahweh or Yahuwah. I think it's Yahweh, but some say Yahuwah. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, which is Friday evening to Saturday evening. It's not Sunday like the Christians say, and it's not Friday like the Muslims say. It's the Sabbath. Friday evening to Saturday evening is the holy day of rest. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son nor your daughter, your manservant nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor any stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and he rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives you. You shall not kill, shall not commit adultery, shall not steal, shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, shall not covet your neighbor's house, shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings, and the noise of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking. This mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they were moved and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but do not let God speak with us, or we will die. Moses said unto the people, Do not be afraid, for God is come to test you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Thus you shall say unto the children of Israel, You have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make with me any gods of silver, nor shall you make unto you gods of gold. And don't make gods of gold. 12 chapters later, hey, let's make a golden image so we can worship it. That's crazy. These are really like a horrible people. And they had so many miracles and so many chances to get right with God, but they always refused. Come to Jesus. That's the only way. You come to Jesus and the Torah becomes a lot easier. You shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth you shall make unto me. So this is a commandment. An altar of earth you shall make unto me, and shall sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your ox. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto you, and I will bless you. God is commanding us to give burnt sacrifices of livestock. The same way Jesus offered 2 burnt sacrifices of pigeons when he was a baby in Luke chapter 2, verse 24, which is part of Leviticus chapter 4 and 5. It says you shall offer a lamb or a goat, and if you can't afford one, then you can sacrifice 2 pigeons instead, which is what Jesus did. And if you will make an altar of stone, you shall not build it of cut stone, for if you lift up your tool upon it, you have polluted it. Neither shall you go up by steps unto my altar, that your nakedness be not discovered thereon. So there's a few more instructions on what type of wood to use and how to do the sacrifices in the book of Jubilees. In Jubilees chapter 21, I believe it was, Abraham gives instructions for the burnt sacrifices. And the book of Jubilees, maybe chapter 8 or so, Noah gives, it's talking about Noah giving burnt sacrifices. So when Moses was on the mountain for 40 days, God was speaking to Moses the book of Jubilees, which is a period of 50 years. Every 50 years is a Jubilee. And it goes from the creation of Adam and Eve up until Moses. I believe there were 50 Jubilees in that time frame. So 2,500 years from Adam and Eve until Moses, about 1,500 years between Moses until Jesus, and about 2,000 years between Jesus until us. So according to the book of Jubilees, the earth is only about 6,000 years old. And there's some evidence to suggest this is very accurate. Not just biblical evidence, but carbon-14 inside of dinosaur skeletons and carbon-14 in diamonds. It's like, what's going on here? Are we controlled by a conspiracy going back to the days of the Bible? Are ancient witches really running the world? I don't know. Let's look at the evidence. Let's not let them dismiss all this stuff, because as it stands, we don't even know what a boy and girl is anymore. So if we can't tell what a boy and a girl is, maybe we should go back to the source. This is Jabal Maqla in Saudi Arabia, the same that is Mount Horeb, the same that is Mount Sinai, as St. Paul said in Galatians, I believe it was chapter 3. Let me see if I have it written down still. Galatians 4:25. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. So there you go. This is the holy mountain of God. Not Shabbat, sorry. Shalom, my brothers and sisters in Christ.